Welcome to Agents Growth Academy. My name is Jim Schubert. I hope you are ready to grow big or go home. If you are looking to improve your branding, your marketing, your agency operations, the good news is you're in the right place. I am unbelievably excited today to bring on a good guest who's going to give you a lot of great information, but who I feel like in a very short time has become a good friend, Dani Kimble, and she's gonna talk about building a brand and creating demand for your agency in 2022. So get ready. But before we bring her on, I do want to say, because she and I were talking off mic about the power of storytelling, and you may have heard me say this before, but I've got a great little takeaway or a download that you can grab for yourself if you're interested in unleashing the power of storytelling in your own agency. So if you go to agentsgrowthacademy.com/stories, I've put together a framework for you that you can use to take your client stories or stories from inside your business and then be able to turn them into actionable items, marketing pieces, different things that you can use to attract people, because there's nothing like stories. I'm sure Dani's going to talk about this. There's nothing is quite as effective as stories, as drawing people in, getting them emotionally invested. So if you go to agentsgrowthacademy.com/stories, you can get started with that today. So my guest, Dani Kimble. Dani's the founder and CEO of Azeli Marketing. She has nearly 7 years of professional marketing experience supporting small, mid-market businesses with branding and marketing. Over that time, she served as CMO for an independent insurance firm and has also supported consulting firms, restaurants, and SaaS startups. Her expertise lies in building custom marketing strategies, and she brings that expertise to a small number of innovative, growth-oriented companies. Dani Kimble, welcome to Agents Growth Academy. How you do?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me on here, Jim.
Yeah, my pleasure. You know, you and I both share, I guess, the spoils of our hard work as masters in education.
Yes, we
And
do.
but I was masters in education for higher education. I thought I might work in a university. What did you do with yours at first?
So it was not higher education. Mine was actually a Master of Education in Dance from Temple University.
Nice. And you also were a student teacher or a professor's assistant or something with that?
Yes, so
Yeah.
I had a professor assistantship position at Temple, where I taught a course actually called Embodying Pluralism. Now, Temple University was the most diverse school in the nation at the time when I went.
Yeah.
And the course was it was a general education course for undergraduate students. And it was about teaching them like different concepts of diversity.
Yeah.
And we did it through movement and through dance.
Oh,
It's fascinating.
wow.
Yeah.
Wow. That's
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah.
And do you still dance now? I don't think you do.
Just a couple TikToks here and there. You may catch me dancing on my TikTok. I love dance. I dance with my kids all of the time. But
Yeah.
no, I sustained a knee injury in
Oh,
twice actually, and so I had reconstructive knee surgery and kind of made a pivot in my career from there.
yeah. Well, God brings us in directions that we need to be going in at the right time, right? So I'm sure at the
Right.
time you probably were frustrated, but I sure am glad you're doing what you're doing now, and I'm glad that you're going to share with our audience
Yeah.
what you came here to share about.
Yeah,
Um,
actually, I feel like the dance has really been the foundation of my marketing, like being involved in the creative arts and choreographing dances and telling stories through movement all has been translatable to marketing. So,
ooh, I can't wait to dig deeper into that. So let's talk about this. You said that if this were a masterclass, you would title it "Building a Brand and Creating Demand for Your Agency in 2022."
right?
Was there a pivotal moment or an epiphany that you had where you said, "This is important"?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I'm starting to notice like the different evolutions and eras of not just marketing, but of like how businesses are operating today, right? And in 2016, 2017, we would get online and go to Google and ask Google a question, and we still are using Google, right? But we'd ask Google a question like, about, let's use insurance, for example, like about what types of coverages you may need on a policy, or you're just like looking for information, and you're looking for advice, and you're landing on blog posts, long form blog posts, right? To
Yeah.
like get that information. Now today, with where marketing has evolved, we're able to really like build relationships with the actual advisors who would write those blog posts on social media. We're able
Yeah.
to go directly to those agents and ask those questions, instead of going to Google and trusting what's written in a blog post from somebody that you don't know. And so I'm thinking like social media has just, and communities, this concept of digital communities in general has transformed the ways that we can really elevate our personal brands, our company brands, and our business in general.
Yeah. I love that concept of communities too. I was going to write that word down because that's so true. I think that, just as you were saying, people used to go to blogs and essentially just interact with the blog. Like now, it's, yeah, you can interact with the person, but there is a whole community behind that person. So
Mhm.
for insurance agents, it's probably the rest of their staff, right? There may be knowledge that's latent in that agency that they can use or that they can share. So
Mhm. Yeah, and I think that there's a gap though. Like, I don't see a lot of insurance agencies leveraging communities in that capacity. I do see a lot of insure tech companies leveraging communities. And we know
mm,
that tech is always a little bit more forward thinking in that way. But, if an insurance agency had 4 or 5 different agents or advisors really active on LinkedIn, or if the agency had some sort of Slack channel where they're inviting their clients into it, or they're inviting prospects or just local businesses into that conversation. It doesn't have to be always about insurance, but it's about creating a community of like, if you're selling business insurance, creating a community of businesses that can throw ideas out there, that you're have full access to like pick people's brains in that group. Like, I think there's so much opportunity inside communities that way.
yeah, I totally agree. And it's interesting because I think back to when my father owned the agency. When I first started about 20 years ago in the agency, we, what I noticed was that people were holding things a lot closer to the vest.
Mhm.
They didn't want to share information. They didn't want to put themselves out on social media as much. Now it's like everybody is.
Yeah.
Why not? But I still feel like, and I'm curious, do you still feel this way? Do you feel like agents are still holding back a little bit from that, and that's part of the problem?
Yes, yes, definitely. I think that it made a lot of sense back then to kind of hold your specials or secret sauce, I'd say,
Yeah,
from getting out there. But there's so much, and I keep speaking back to this, there's just so much opportunity where if you are out there educating your clients on how exactly they should do something, or how they should manage their risk, or how they should think about insurance, or what type of insurance advisor do they really need? Are they looking for a transactional quote process? Are they looking for a consultative, conversation with an advisor to help guide them? They need to like be hearing this almost on the repeat to understand insurance better. There's a huge gap there, and like, we're not telling our story well enough for
mm,
society to understand like insurance and what it means and how it protects them. And so then it becomes and feels like a commodity. So the more that we're holding tight to our chest and like hiding that secret sauce, the less society really understands like the full purpose of insurance and like the passion behind this industry, right?
yeah, yeah, absolutely. You and I were talking off mic about a post that you shared. I thought you wrote it, but was it Kelly Donahue Perot? Is that who?
No, no, and
Oh,
I'm
different
blanking
Kelly.
on her last name, but Kelly, she is she does like life insurance and different types
Oh,
of
okay.
disability insurance and things.
Yeah. Was a phenomenal post that you made a comment on saying more people need to be doing this. And essentially the post was talking about this, this guy named Jim, and it had a picture of his family and talking about how he sustained an eye injury and had to, you know, rely on long-term disability, which lasted for like 20 plus years. And it
Hmm.
allowed him to, you know, I had a checklist of all these things that allowed, you know, his family could still take vacations together. He, you know, they still had their kids in private school and did all these different things. And then she says, "This is my father-in-law." I was like,
Yeah.
"Oh my gosh." And it, like, I was invested in the story, but you're
Right.
so right. Like that, there's so much power in that. And we don't do that enough.
No, we need more of
Yeah.
that. We need
Yeah.
more like real life stories. And there's so many clients out there that are comfortable with their story being shared because it can help
Mm-hmm.
inspire other people to kind of get the right things in place for them personally, right? So
Yeah.
it's not a fear-induced thing. It's more like education. It's
Yeah.
more just sharing knowledge. And Kelly, if we could link her maybe in the
Yeah,
comments or
we will.
something, I
For
will
sure.
get her her full name. I feel terrible I'm blanking on
No,
it.
it's okay.
But she yeah, she posts things like this frequently. She does a great job on LinkedIn and just building her
Mm.
presence and building her personal brand and telling stories and educating people. I think she's a great example.
You're answering all these questions that I haven't even asked you yet. I was gonna say, like, who do you see out there that's doing some good things like this? Anybody else come to mind that's doing some things, or strategies that you've seen, if there's not a name or a face to it?
Yeah, I'd say Bradley Flowers. A lot of people know Bradley Flowers, of course, but I think he
Yeah.
sets like a good tone for agencies. And I love seeing his like evolution in Newport. Um, I'm blanking on it. I'm terrible with the names. I'm blanking on his actual insurance agency name, but he does a great job at really marketing and branding his agency, growing his agency, and then sharing that. He also shares that knowledge with the insurance community, which I think is beautiful. It's a perfect example of like not holding tight, right?
Yeah.
And teaching other insurance agencies how to do the same.
Yeah. I mean, what's the saying? A rising tide lifts all ships, right? We're
Yeah.
all in this together.
His
So
agency's Portal Insurance.
portal.
Yeah.
Okay, got it. Got
Yeah.
it. I'm really putting you on the spot today, aren't
I know.
I? No, it's good.
Yeah.
What are, you know, you already mentioned a couple things, but think through, what are agents getting wrong? And I'll ask it in a different way in a second, but what do you see mistakes that agents are making currently when it comes to branding and marketing?
There are so many independent agencies that aren't putting value or prioritizing marketing at
Mm-hmm.
the leadership level. I think it's
Hmm.
really important to now position marketing as part of the overall business operations and not just a let's let the assistant do it or let's let the secretary do some marketing work or write the newsletter, right?
Yeah.
Nothing against the assistant or the secretary, but they have a lot of other roles and responsibilities that they need to
Mm-hmm.
be paying attention to. And at this point in the era of internet and where we're at in this world, like marketing is so important today. It is so
Yeah.
important to build a digital presence, to drive people to the website, to collect Google reviews, to collect customer testimonials and feedback from clients and understand, why are our clients coming here? That's a marketer's role. And
Yeah.
that they're taking that and really using their client feedback to like inform the messaging and get that messaging out to attract new clients in. It's also, I mean, in addition to just new revenue opportunities, like there's just when I speak around business operations, like marketing helps attract talent to the agency. It
Yeah.
helps retain current clients,
And
through
staff.
client communications and staff, right?
Yeah.
So there's so many different levels that marketing impacts today. It's not just about getting leads in the door. And I don't see enough agencies really prioritizing marketing.
That is such a valuable comment right there, Danny. It's not just about getting leads in the door. And I think, listen, I'll be the first to admit, I think I'm guilty of when we've, embarked on marketing missions in the past, that's all that's in my head. Because I mean, as an agency owner, an agency leader, we're thinking about, we have to grow. We have to grow the
Mhm.
business in order to thrive and be able to afford the things that we're paying for, and adding staff and things like that. We obviously need the revenue, but you're right. There's so many more things that marketing and branding actually affect when it comes
Mhm.
down to it. Yeah.
Well, and I think it's short-sighted to think about the leads that you get tomorrow are what's going to drive the success of the agency.
Mm, yeah.
Occasionally, you get that really good, profitable account, right? Um,
Yeah.
but if if a marketer has to be so focused on driving a ton of leads into the business, that's a short-term view. If we're driving a ton of leads, they may be shopping on price, right? And they may be
Right.
leaving and exiting the next year when they find a cheaper price.
Sure.
So the long-term view of building a brand, building a presence, like really pushing your culture out there, really engaging in internally marketing to the team, and like making sure that they're all on the same page. Like if you look at brand as a long-term view, it's going to produce more profitable long-term results.
Absolutely. I mean, I can see that from people that are much smarter than me.
Mhm.
You mentioned Bradley Flowers, or I think about somebody like Chris Paradiso, or
Yeah, he's great.
just folks like that are doing such a phenomenal job. David Carruthers, others, just doing such a fantastic job. And I'm like, yeah, it also takes a lot of energy. So I guess my next question to you is,
Yeah.
what about us agency owners, or, those of us in leadership in an agency who are like, Dani, that sounds awesome. And I'm totally like bought into that, but I don't have the time. I don't have the time capacity to be able to handle that. What
Mhm.
do you say to them?
And that's where I think it comes down to strategy, and,
Mm-hmm.
and really getting crystal clear on like, um, if we're making this a priority, what is currently working inside the agency now, and how
Mm,
can we scale that and focus there, making sure that like that is moving and optimizing to the best of its ability, and using marketing tactics to help with that. So let's say you deliver an incredible client experience and you're getting raving reviews from your clients. Well, let's turn those raving reviews into interview conversations that we can then record and create video case studies. And you hire support to help you with that. But can I do 2 interviews with clients that like love what we do, that had a transformational experience from point A to point B since when they started working with us? Here's what happened. Like, can I do that 2 conversations a month? Is that possible? Does that fit within my schedule?
yeah.
Yes. There's 2 case studies that you can produce very quickly. So, thinking of, yeah, going back to like thinking about what is currently working inside the agency today, how can we scale that, and what can we do to improve and make that better before jumping to all the shiny objects, all the different marketing tactics. I think that's one way that an agency owner could tackle marketing.
I love that. I am definitely a shiny objects person. And
Me too.
my team, if you're listening, they will be the first to tell you that. So on we use a personality score called Colby, and there's like 4 different elements, and one of them is quick start. And I am
Mhm.
a 9 out of 10 on quick start. So
Yeah.
it's not just like squirrel or shiny thing. It's like shiny squirrel.
Yeah. So I did Colby too, and I am a 9 on quick start as well.
Nice.
Yes.
Well, that then I have to give you a lot of credit, because one of the posts that I was reading on LinkedIn that you made, we talked about this off mic too. You talked about a content strategy, which part of it you just discussed.
Mhm.
In essence, talking about starting. Well, I'll let you tell that story actually, because I
Yeah.
loved it. The one where you talked about starting with one piece of long form content, and
Yeah.
then what do you do after that? Because it is a strategy.
Yes. Yes, definitely. I think one of the struggles is like people feel, I also often get a question of like, I don't know what to post, or I don't know
Yeah.
what to share, and I have nothing to share on social media. It's like, yes, you do. You have so much knowledge and expertise. How do we get that out? And so I always suggest you spend the time, invest the time creating one long form piece of content. So that could be an interview. Maybe you are on a podcast being interviewed. This would be an example of
Oh
one
yeah.
long form piece of content, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or maybe you give a keynote presentation on your topic somewhere, or
Mm-hmm.
you write a long form blog post,
Yeah.
and a lot of people will sometimes write that long form blog post and push it out on their blog, and then it just like sits there to collect dust because
Yeah.
they just hope that Google finds it. Maybe they haven't done like some of the research around search engine optimization to see.
Mm-hmm.
And so sometimes it'll just sit there. Um, and I value blog posts and writing blog posts and posting them on the website to use that content in other pieces. So
Mm.
once you have the long form piece developed, you then splice it up into micro pieces of content. So it could be on, different segmented topics, and each topic becomes
Right.
a piece of content. And then you repackage that content to determine, it depends on which social platforms or which
Mm-hmm.
places that you want to distribute the content on, but you repackage it to feel native to the platform. And Jim, I think you do an excellent job of this with your podcast and putting a snippet, a
Thank you.
clip of your video from the interview, just a
Mm-hmm.
snippet onto LinkedIn, and then you show them where they can go to watch the full video,
Mm-hmm.
right? Or to listen to the full podcast. So
Right.
thinking in that way, where it's like maybe it's a video on LinkedIn, or maybe it's a carousel image or a slider on LinkedIn,
Yeah.
or it's a tweet that goes on Twitter, or it's a Twitter thread. So
Yeah.
depending on where your audience is hanging out, you distribute your content onto those platforms and make it feel native to the platform.
Yeah.
And then you figure out, the last step is like, okay, what worked from that distribution model? Like, what really seemed to capture my target audience's attention? Not people within your industry, people that you actually serve and sell business to. Like,
Mm-hmm.
what captured their attention? What did they react to? What positive signals came from that? And double down on that aspect of the strategy.
I love it. And that last piece for me, I think, is something that I'm missing a lot, is just figure out what's working, do more of that. And I
Mhm.
think now, I can't remember if it was off mic or on mic now that you were talking about, I think it was off mic. You were talking about a post you made about Web3, and
Yeah.
it didn't quite perform the way that you were anticipating. But
Mhm.
what was your takeaway from that?
Yeah, that's a good question. I am just fascinated and incredibly curious about the future of the internet and
Yeah.
Web3, and I'm studying it. I'm paying attention.
What is Web3? I'm sorry for our audience that doesn't know, including myself.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. So here's how I look at it. Again,
Yeah.
I'm very beginner, no expert in this, but Web 1 was when the internet first came out. And that was
Yeah.
static web pages where content would be posted on a static web page, and you could go. This is the time when like AOL CDs were showing up in the mailbox, and you were using like the 400 hours that you could get, right? And putting it
Yeah.
into your like tower.
Yep.
um, and so, uh, and so that was Web 1, and I wanna say it was around, like, 1990s, late 90s, maybe through
Yes.
early 2000s?
I remember my first in senior in high school, and it was the first time I
Yes.
got on the internet in the
Mm.
library.
Yeah, it's fascinating, right?
Yeah.
It was fascinating then. So,
Yeah.
and then around 2005 to, like, today or 2021, right,
Mm-hmm.
we're in this Web 2 phase where, Google comes out, and we
Mm.
start searching for things online, social media channels. We are
Yeah.
now able to interact with people. We're
Mm-hmm.
creating content. So the first Web 1 is like we're consuming content. Second, Web 2, we're creating content and
Wow.
consuming content.
Yeah.
And then Web3 is really moving us in a direction where we are like owning, you can now like own your content on the internet. It
Mm.
becomes a digital asset in some capacity. And so
Yeah.
communities and this concept of communities is really taking charge in Web3. And we're
Mm-hmm.
seeing communities be built in Web2 and transition into like the future of the internet. So I'm actually working on a Web3 project with an organization, but I think it's a huge opportunity for small businesses to think about how they're going to market their businesses in this space. And so I just want to be really paying attention to it. We're starting to see big brands do it already,
Yeah.
move into Web3 projects. And so small businesses just need to be kind of paying attention to it.
Is, uh, pardon my ignorance, but is podcasting considered one of those where it's sort of ownership, or you're creating a community, or am I way off base there?
No, you're not way off base. Like a lot of the Web 2 market ways that we market our businesses will transition into a Web3 space too. So,
Hmm.
podcasting, Twitter, we're starting to see Twitter spaces where you can go have live conversations with a bunch of people inside Twitter. I don't know if you're familiar with the Twitter platform, but that's like
Yeah.
become a really popular place.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, it's just it it'll reinform how we do marketing in and it'll continue to evolve. I'm anxious to see where marketing's at in 2030 and
Yeah.
2050. And like it's just
Yeah.
going to continue to evolve and just being ready for it.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
I'm sorry I derailed your the beginning of your answer, because I was saying, it's that last it's the
Right.
double down that I feel like I struggle with, and your takeaway from that post about Web3 not performing.
Yeah.
Man, I can't believe I reconnected that. Thank goodness.
No,
So,
yes.
yeah,
Thank you for
yeah.
bringing
So
me
what
back
was
to that
your
question.
what was yeah, what was your takeaway from that?
I'm going to actually look.
Yeah, go for it.
I posted it this morning
Hmm.
and I have three likes on the post.
Yeah,
Three, right? And usually my posts perform better than that. So,
yeah.
um, but that doesn't stop me from talking about the topic, right?
Okay.
Um, I think you reach a point where once you start posting and you're like, initially you're like, oh, like I'm looking for likes, I'm looking for comments,
Hmm.
but really, it doesn't matter too much about yes, you want engagement, but you really are looking for positive signals of like, uh, do people DM you and ask you a question
Mm.
about something?
Okay.
Did somebody shoot you an email and inquire about something? You're looking for
Yeah.
like positive signals to me. A positive signal could be you impacted one person or you educated like one person. And
Mm.
so I think it's really important for like agency owners who may be building a personal brand to not be so caught up on like the likes and the comments. And then that could totally derail you from even putting yourself out there in the first place because like sometimes that's like so disappointing. Instead, just like stay consistent and continue to like follow where like your intuition takes you.
Yeah.
Paying attention to like how the audience is kind of giving you some feedback, but not letting that always stop you, I'd say.
Sure. I love that, because that gets down much deeper than just the surface level likes and comments. I know I'm guilty of that, thinking like, oh, this is good because I'm getting a lot of likes and comments.
Sure. Yeah.
But is there something deeper? And I love what you're saying about, do people reach out to you?
Hmm.
Do people, individually, do they DM you? Do they email you? Do they? And I can think back to certain posts that I've made now, that even whether they had a lot of likes or not, those were the ones that I actually valued more, when somebody started a genuine conversation
Yeah.
afterwards, which is, if you think about it, really is why you do marketing in the first place, right? Is to develop relationships. Uh, I was just at the Jason Cass's Brain Share
Hmm.
event in Missouri, or Missouri. Where was I? I think I was in Missouri. Yeah, I was. I was in Kansas City. I've been traveling a lot recently, and somebody was talking about how um, I've just completely lost my train of thought. But yes, it was talking about not focusing on just the likes and the comments, and
Yeah.
yeah, it's
It's so easy to get caught up. Well, I think we need to like eventually step back and talk about personal branding, but it's so easy to get caught up in like if you don't get likes and you don't get comments, like people don't like your content in
mm-hmm.
quotes. And that's not necessarily true. Um, but it's also good. Silence is good feedback because maybe you didn't explain it in the right way, or maybe you
Mm.
could have written it a little bit differently, or maybe you
Ooh,
could tweak the messaging. So silence is really good feedback as well.
that's brilliant. I never even thought about that. I never thought about that. I remember what I was going to say. So somebody said at the conference that the purpose of marketing, and maybe you disagree with this, I don't know. The purpose of marketing is simply to let people know that you exist and then to remind them.
Mm.
I don't know.
Yeah, I feel like I've read that quote somewhere before
Yeah.
too.
So maybe they stole it from someone else. I don't know.
No, no, and yeah, I like it. I think to take it deeper, it's like we have to get the message out there as to how we're helping people, how we can help people, you know? Instead of like just existing, like we exist because why? Why
Right.
do we exist, you know?
Right. Yeah, that's a good point. And you mentioned providing value before, which is another thing we talk about a lot on the show is like find ways to provide value first before you ever even ask someone for something.
Mm. Hmm.
I remember when you and I first met on a quick Zoom call just to talk about, hey, would it make sense to do a podcast together? And you gave me so much value in different things that I wrote down. You were helping me with some other business ventures that I've got and even some personal things in my life and giving me resources. And
Mm.
like, that's why I say, like, I feel like I have a friend in you already
I love
because we have built a relationship very quickly because of your willingness to give, to provide value first without, you're not asking me for anything. I mean, is this a great platform for you to get the word out about you and how you help people? I like to think so.
that.
but,
Yeah.
but yeah, I love that concept of providing value.
Yeah, and there's so many people out there that like just truly want to give. Like they just like have the passion to share what they know and to help other people, you know?
Yeah.
And there's no I'm not looking for anything in return. You know,
Yeah.
I didn't even come on this podcast to like sell anything. Like
Yeah.
I'm not looking for anything in return. I
Yeah.
just like to share what I know in hopes to like help other people grow.
You're just a darn good person.
We need good people in this world.
I'm curious to know more. You said personal branding and you said, let's talk
Mhm,
about this. I would love for you
mhm.
to talk about that. What is that? Why is it important? And specifically for insurance agents?
Yeah, sure. I think this is a perfect like place for insurance agency owners to build a personal brand today. And even if you've been in the industry for a long time, you may remember going to different networking events, and we're still doing networking events today, but
Mm-hmm.
going to like different chamber events or different types of groups in your communities where you would hang out and build relationships with people in real life relationships. And
Yeah.
now we have the opportunity to also do that in the digital world at scale,
Yeah.
building relationships with people online. And let's say you're a business that writes across different states and you can't always meet in person. Um, there you have the opportunity to reach them. I've met so many amazing people on LinkedIn. I've met so
Yeah.
many amazing people on LinkedIn. And we may have never met in person, but we've been able to really help and grow to help each other and grow together. And I'd say building that personal brand, my personal brand has been instrumental to my overall growth in kind of stepping down from the agency world and just being starting a marketing consulting firm. Like my
Yeah.
personal brand has driven all of that. And it's just staying consistent, showing up, teaching, educating people what you know, and learning from others too, and building those relationships.
It's great because I was about to ask, like, so what is a personal brand? So
Yeah.
it's providing. It sounds like it's providing the value that you know how to provide to an audience. Is that
Hmm.
essentially it, or am I missing
Yeah,
something?
that's a good way to describe it. Is
Yeah.
yeah, and doing so in a consistent way.
Yeah.
You have to show up consistently. You have to get in the arena and do it consistently.
Yeah. For quick starts like us, at least for me, that's really that honestly, that is the biggest thing I struggle with.
Mm,
And you alluded to this before, and I'm wondering if this is like the solution for people like us, because I think a lot of agency owners and a lot of agents themselves maybe quick start because they love the thrill of a new connection, a new relationship, a new way of looking at things or marketing or whatever it is. But to add consistency, you mentioned before, hire someone to turn that rave review into an interview, or to
Mhm.
turn that interview into multiple pieces of content. I wouldn't be able to do this without the people at Podcast Multipliers, a guy named Josh Tapp, that he and his team. So when you talked about, hey, Jim, you do a good job of, turning this into different types of content. All I do, Dani, is show up and have awesome conversations with
Sure.
wonderful people like you, and they do the rest.
Sure.
And I'm wondering what your thoughts on outsourcing would be for agents. Yes, no, how much, how little?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. I think outsourcing in general is just really, really an important part to continue to do the things that help you grow your agency, but then also help you eliminate the things that could distract you from focusing on the areas of where your strong suit is, or like what's really like helping propel the agency forward.
Yeah,
So there's a quadrant, and I'll send it to you afterwards. There's a
yeah,
quadrant you can do on things that like things you love to do and you're really good at. Do you know what I'm talking about?
yes. Have you
Yes.
read Traction?
Yes. So
Is
we
that
at the agency we practiced entrepreneurial operating system and
we
like that
use
quadrant.
EOS as well?
Yes, I love
Yes.
EOS.
Yeah, we'll tell our audience about it though, because I don't know that we've
Yes.
talked a lot about it here.
Yeah, and I don't know all of it by heart, but it's basically identifying the things that you know how to do really, really well, and you love to do them. You enjoy doing them, and
Yeah,
put those in one box. And then and you can imagine what the boxes look like. But in the bottom corner, it's like, what are the things you hate doing, you do not like doing, and they aren't producing any result or like any necessary like things that you should be focusing your time on
yeah,
inside the agency, and write those things out. And those are the things that you outsource and get off your plate.
yeah.
And find other people who love doing that stuff. There's so many people out there that love to do different things. So I think outsourcing is huge.
I love that. And we need to put a link to that quadrant somehow in the show notes. So I'll make sure that the team does that.
Yes.
The exercise I think is called Delegate and Elevate, because
Yes.
you're elevating yourself to be able to work on the business, whether you're an owner or whether you're an agent, like working on the business of what you do instead of working in it all the time,
Yes.
and not spending we all have the same amount of time available to us, but it's what
Mhm.
you choose to spend your God-given talents doing. Are they productive, or could somebody else
Right.
be doing it? Yeah,
Right.
I
Hmm.
love that. I
Yeah.
did that. I did that exercise for the first time a couple of years ago, and it was so powerful,
Yeah. I
so
agree.
powerful.
I
But
agree.
it's what you do after that that really matters.
Yeah. Implement in
Implement it, right?
everything, right? In
Yeah,
every And just
absolutely.
speaking to the consistency of it, like of trying to build a personal brand, like staying consistent, it's not always fun. I mean,
Yeah,
yes, you may enjoy it and then enjoy the results of it. For example, I've been posting daily on LinkedIn
I
for, I want to
noticed.
say about 60 days. And I don't love it every day. I love to write, but I
Hmm.
struggle sometimes. I'll hit writer's block sometimes, right? And it's getting over those humps of like continuing to do the work even when it's hard,
Hmm.
um, to stay consistent. Because again, I know the consistency and then constant like iteration and taking the feedback and changing and rerouting the strategy a little bit based on the feedback is so
Yeah.
important and will yield to those long-term results.
Well, and you just answered the question that I had in my head: is what what
Sorry.
what fruit have you seen from being consistent? But it sounds like
Yes.
finding ways, like seeing the pattern alone of what is working and what you should double down on. It sounds like that's a big
Well,
thing.
and I know for sure, I mean, I've seen business results specifically related to the consistency of me posting on LinkedIn every day. So we
Yeah.
could even speak to the revenue side of it. But
Hmm.
aside from that, what I feel like is the biggest benefit is like I've overcome that hump of like imposter syndrome and
Yes.
of not like not feeling like I don't know I'm okay with not knowing everything and putting that out there to the world that I'm
Yeah.
no expert. I'm learning and growing just like we all are, right?
Yep. Yep.
Um, and I'm okay with sharing as I grow now instead of like being fearful of not knowing all the information before I put it out.
I love it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Imposter syndrome. I'm experiencing that writing my first book right now on a
Sure.
regular basis because I'm
Yeah.
like, who am I to preach about storytelling? And sometimes my wife will say, you're one of the worst storytellers ever because you you start way too far back. Like, how did you guys meet? Well, I was born in 1977. Like, no, 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 no. Don't start
Yes.
there.
Oh, I'm excited to read that.
Yeah. Well, I'm
I'm
excited to
excited.
write it. It's to give you something to read.
Yes,
Yeah.
please do.
Yeah. Well, thank you.
Yeah.
Um, you ready for the rapid fire round?
Yeah, sure.
Awesome. Let's do it. And I'll give you a chance to kind of leave with some, parting thoughts if there's anything that you felt like you haven't gotten out yet.
Okay.
But I think so far it's been super valuable. I have taken copious notes. But one piece of technology or software that you can't live without. And if you tell me it's your phone, give me an app.
So I have been obsessed with the Notion app, which actually I use the desktop version.
Okay.
Notion is, I don't even know how to explain it, but it's like a database system around project management, around you can like create content. I have my whole content operating system housed inside here. So I have a content plan, a content strategy. I know exactly how to set up the timelines and like how do I write the content in there, everything. So it's a database warehouse of like my whole content system. But it does so much more than that. So Notion, in short, is great. And it's also available on the iPhone, on the app.
I'm curious, what were you using before that to organize all of that?
I was using Google Docs,
Me
Google
too.
Sheets.
Yeah. So what's the difference between using that and this? It's just a lot more organized.
I'm sorry, I think it cut out a little
Yeah,
bit.
no, no, no. Well, yeah. What's the difference between using the Google Suite versus Notion? Is it just give you a lot more organization?
Yes. So Notion houses it all in one spot versus
Mm-hmm.
Google Suite has like, you have to go to different file folders and try and find everything. In
Yeah.
Notion, you can link everything to each other.
Love it. I am going to check
Yes.
that out because that's one thing I'm struggling with personally.
Yes. It's
Awesome.
amazing.
Thank you. What's one book you're reading right now or a book that you just love, all-time favorite that you want to share with folks?
One recent book that I just finished is Founder Brand by Dave Gerhardt.
Okay.
I think it's really timely in building a personal brand, and he breaks it down into the very, very basic tactical level of building a personal brand.
Ooh, I love it. Is it just for founders of businesses or?
You can apply it to. He writes about how he built the founder brand, the
Yeah.
founder's brand as a
Mm-hmm.
marketer, but you
Mm-hmm.
can apply it to any personal brand.
I love it. I
Yeah.
saw a post that you made recently where you listed a bunch of books. Yes, I'm stalking you on LinkedIn. And I thought it was such a great list. Another one on there was building a story brand from
Yes.
Donald Miller.
Yes.
That's who, like, when I decided I wanted to write a book on the power of storytelling in business, I went out and like found the top books, and that was like the top one.
Yes,
It's such a good
that's
one.
amazing. Oh,
Yeah.
I loved that book. I went into his workshop too and
Did you?
really, really got a ton. I use StoryBrand in the strategy planning all the time. Businesses, I
Ooh,
love it.
I just remembered there's something I was going to talk to you about off mic that has to do with story brand and websites. Awesome. Thank you for that.
Yes.
Sorry, audience. Little inside stuff there. Also, do you read all your books? Do you listen to them? How do
Mhm.
you consume your books?
I prefer to read them, but I
Mm-hmm.
also have 4 kids, and so sometimes I'll turn the audiobook on while I'm folding all their laundry or cooking dinner. But I would love to just like sit down and read the whole book.
Yeah. Yep. I'm right there with you. I'm short one child from your number, but it's very, very busy.
Yes.
uh, yeah. And our audience has heard this before, but we teamed up with Audible to give folks a free audiobook if you want to try it for yourself. That's how I preview books. And if I
Nice.
really like it, then I go buy the book and start making all the notes. But if you go to audibletrial.com/grow big, if you're not already using Audible, it's a great way to just get a free audiobook to see if that works for you. But yeah, I love Audible. I
Yes.
don't know where I'd be without it.
Right.
Probably
Me
wouldn't
too.
read nearly as many books as if I didn't use that.
Right.
Curious about this one. Advice that you would give to your younger self about
Mm,
anything.
that's deep. That's a deep question.
I know. We
Uh,
only ask the deep ones.
I I would say, and I tell this to my kids all the time, and I'm paying attention to. So I think this was advice that I needed to hear more often when I was younger, is to chase. And it sounds cliche, but to chase your dreams and truly uh, identify like your goals and dreams and biggest ambitions in life is like sometimes just a couple steps ahead. It's not far away from you, and anything is like achievable. I think that the world and the opportunities that we have in front of us today, it's never been easier to achieve our dreams. And so like write those down, look at them daily, and like chase them because they're accomplishable.
I love it. I wrote down just a couple steps ahead is not that far away from you. That's a
Mhm.
beautiful way of saying it because you're right with all the different technologies and opportunities that make it so easy these
Yeah.
days. And you're living it. You're in the branding and marketing world. This is what so
Yeah.
much of
Love
it
it.
is, right? Yeah.
Yes. I love
Yeah.
it.
It's
Yeah.
beautiful. Thank you. Um, and finally, one final piece of advice or actionable step that you would leave with our audience that they could use.
Yeah, I would say, as it relates to marketing, I think marketing has evolved into an entirely new level where it's no longer solely focused on bringing sales or leads into the door, and it can have a much greater impact on your business when you look at the long term of building a brand, building a digital presence, and overall growth in business operations. I think marketing can play a major role there. So I guess the one piece of advice would be to prioritize it, prioritize
Mm,
marketing, make marketing a part of the overall business leadership plan.
I love it. I love it. I do have a surprise question for you.
Uh oh.
If you had the opportunity later today, because we're recording this in the morning, or for dinner, just think about dinner. Would you
Mhm.
rather have a hot bowl of soup, or finish your meal with gourmet marshmallows and hot chocolate? Which would you choose, soup or hot chocolate and marshmallows?
Oh, and
It's kind of a
I've
weird one.
never been asked this question before. I
Mm.
imagine if it was the hot chocolate with marshmallows, it would involve my kids being a part of that, and that's always fun. So I'll choose the hot chocolate with marshmallows.
Awesome. Well, you
Yeah.
have chosen well. We're gonna send you a gift from our friends at Mountain Mallow. We found
Yay.
them when we were out in Colorado a few years ago, me and my wife, and we gave it to our staff last year as a gift when we weren't getting together because of COVID, and they
Oh,
loved it. They
oh,
loved
that's
it.
awesome.
But I know we're like it's starting to get warmer here in Atlanta, but you can always have hot chocolate and
Of course.
marshmallows,
Of
and they're
course.
gourmet. They are really, really good. So I'll get your
Oh,
address off air, but and
thank
our
you. I'm
guests,
excited.
yeah. Oh, my pleasure. Yeah,
Mm,
it's a way of saying thank you, for being here.
I appreciate
Um,
that.
and for anybody listening, if you want to go get your own, just go to mountainmallow.com and use code grow big, as in grow
Mhm.
big or go home. You get a 15% discount at checkout.
Nice.
So yeah, but you don't have to do that because I'm going to send it to you. So
Thank you. I'm looking forward to trying it.
yeah, yeah. Um, Dani, if people want more of you in their life, how can they make that happen? Where can they find you?
I'd say the best way is on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
I'm pretty active on LinkedIn there. So if you follow Dani Kimble, you'll see some of the content, but also I love to engage and have conversations too.
Awesome. Love it.
Yeah,
Love it. Danny, it's been a pleasure having you on the show today. And I think our guests are going to get a lot out of this in terms
great.
of where to go next for next steps in branding and marketing. So thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me on. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Folks, until next time, grow big or go home. Take care.